Are any of us awake for this? I mean,
I am.
Welcome back, everybody, to Dungeon Brew. This is the 6th episode of The Short Rest, where me and the guys come and talk about what happened in our previous game. We just hit our mid-season finale with the 9th Ascension, so we're coming in to see what the heck happened. Hopefully it was all good things, and I guess if we have nothing to talk about, then we'll just do some sort of intervention on Greg. I'll turn it over to you guys. How do you guys think? I mean, we did a lot of combat, probably more combat in our game last night than we've done in any game prior in this campaign.
Yeah, I would say so. There was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I want to say is that I enjoyed the basic combat system that you were using for it, and I know that you pulled it from something, and I feel like you should explain where that came from.
Yeah, you're gonna ask me, and I'm not even gonna know. Because I told Greg, and then I just erased it out of my head.
Does Greg know?
It was something. Wasn't it like? I'm gonna say it wrong. Was it like chain shirt or
chainmail?
Chainmail. Yeah, I just remember. I think I said that before. Chain shirt, and it was like I know it's something like that.
So so chainmail is the system. It was developed in 1974. It actually predated D&D. Gary Gygax was involved in. I don't know if he actually created the game, but he played the game, was influenced by the game originally. I would have to go back and look at the lore around it, and I apologize for not knowing it off the top of my head. But he played chainmail quite a bit before kind of starting D&D. And you could actually go and find the chainmail PDF document directly online that kind of outlines some of the things that we utilized. I know that I have the issue of intermingling HD and D6 during the course of the game and talking about it, because you develop the amount of D6 that are rolled by the HD for the monsters that you're fighting. Mm-hmm. But essentially I took some elements from that system and I just adapted it a little bit to kind of have a streamlined way of doing mass battle with this game. Because we had done the previous mass battle during the festival, and that was just a little hectic to kind of run through and moving through the combat tracker with Fantasy Grounds. Right. I will say this was a little difficult to do as well, but it seemed to flow better than it did before, at least on my end.
It felt more tactical, at least, like having actual units to move and that type of thing. I think that, like I said, it's D&D mass combat, so it didn't feel like wargaming necessarily, but it felt better than individual people just having dozens of them all around the field. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed it. I thought it was. I thought it was pretty fun. I feel like tactically, we shot ourselves in the foot on that third map, but yeah, overall it was pretty fun. I enjoyed the combat of it.
Well, go ahead, Todd.
I was just gonna say, we speak tactically, in when you think about it, in many ways, I think we were injecting so many other strategies in there that were not helpful, because in that one, it matters more about who has the most dice than it does who's the more difficult to kill, because we were focusing on someone that were harder to kill, and they only had 1 dice left, and this light foot had 5 dice, and it's doing more damage than this heavy one, but we were focusing on the ones harder to kill. And really, you need to focus on the numbers. Or the other problem is you concentrate too many dice on one enemy, and it's a waste, because in that second combat, they just had so many people attacking on one character that there was nothing you could do, and the dice were all spread out.
Yeah, I thought about that, which is why during that map, I just I was doing this a lot, even on the previous map, where I would just pick the one that I thought I could do the most dice damage to and reduce the HD as much as I possibly could, and I would target them. So I was ignoring the ones that had 1 or 2 or 3 dice left, because they were less likely to do damage than the ones that had 6 or 12 or whatever. I did a lot of that.
Statistically speaking, but then we're looking at our DM, who in those 2 dice, both rolls a 6, and
Right.
then it
Yes.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, dice odds were definitely not in our favor. I think that there
Well,
were
that's the frustrating part. They were in our favor. They just
Weren't in
did
our
not
favor.
go in our
no,
favor.
we were playing against Joshua. They weren't in our favor. I was thinking about this though after the fact, and I think that individually, any one of us would have handled like any of those combat encounters better than we did as a group, because I think each of us kind of was approaching it from a slightly different angle, and so it created a kind of chaos rather than a cohesive thing. And then the second thing that I was thinking is that I think by the end we kind of figured out a lot of what we should be doing, but since we had never really played this combat style before, there were definitely a lot of things that threw us for a loop initially that we were kind of working out as we went, and so we kind of figured them out later in the game, but early on we definitely were making a lot of mistakes on how we should have been handling it.
Yeah, I want to say that one thing specifically about like this combat system is that this was new for all of us. We hadn't utilized this before, and so it was kind of like stepping into, waters for the first time to figure out what we wanted to do with it. But it was interesting, and I know that a lot of times we like want to improvise and do new things and try new things in the course of combats and kind of build new rules. And I was really hesitant to add things on like attacks of opportunity or giving you guys the ability to heal outside of that, or retreating type of stuff. Like I was trying to have or even with archers, like can they attack within short distance? Like I just wanted to have something really simple to play with for us to analyze what works and what doesn't work before we came back and then started saying, okay, here's additional rules that we can add onto the system. But overall, like I was very pleased in just terms of what the balance was looked like, because not only did you guys succeed very well, but there was also situations that became very dangerous at the same time.
And it failed spectacularly.
But I think one of the things that would have changed this dynamic totally is if when we were playing, the other side had archery units. If they would have had ranged units, I think the way it was interesting and fun how we played, but almost the way that game's set up is if you have range units, your melee units become almost obsolete, because range units can attack with their full strength from afar and up close, which just makes them deadly all the way up to where a melee unit, by the time they gets there, they're already wiped out almost or hurt quite a bit.
Yeah. And I appreciate the simplicity you approached it with to start with, because I think that it's the type of thing to where, in future games where we decide to incorporate a similar thing, I think this is a really good base to start from, and then you tweak it. So you start going, oh, okay, so let's talk about maybe you're not using a D6 or something like that if you're a ranged unit in melee, or maybe you have a better, like you're using different die styles, so you're using D6s, D12s, D10s, whatever. There's a lot of options that I think can be rolled into this to make different units feel different, and I think it would be a lot of fun to play with in the future.
And I think inside a campaign like we're doing, having that grand scale that it feels more, and then it's just like we're in a battle and we're in some place with 5 other people and it's a war. It's kind of feels like, oh, okay, where this one you kind of have that larger feel and you're kind of a part of that. And that was kind of an interesting shift in the story.
Yeah,
I really like that Todd's character ended up being the best of all of us when it came to like him being able to participate as part of an army. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I really think
tank and a dragon.
Yeah, and I think that it's something that we could, like, again, that's another thing that could be tweaked, where it's like, Greg is the general, so maybe the general has a rally ability or something else that he can do, and Jason's the healer, so he can do something, and Don doesn't get anything special because he's just whatever, but
he can
like
suck somebody off, right?
Yeah, you can raise troops back up to fight alongside you,
right? But just having the ability to have different classes or different roles do different things in combat. Again, my head's spinning with options, and I'll be tweaking with what you started with, I think, a lot.
Yeah, we adjusted enough of that. You could almost build a whole nother game out of just that specifically. That would work pretty well with what you're talking about, having
Right.
heroes and armies and that type of thing. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I do want to also say, and this is probably a question that would be asked of me, I did not change anything in regards to what armies I'd set up for each map. So in terms of what you guys found at the front gates, to the saboteurs, to the third map that you guys moved over to even the two smaller ones at the courtyard and the council, all those battles and the armies were already pre-made on all those maps, and I did not change it at all. And I kind of felt bad because you guys really just like destroyed the first 2 rounds, and then you moved in that third round, and that third map had a ton of armies on it ready to go at it. And the reason it was set up that way is because you could have rolled dice again and stayed on that map where additional armies would have come in, and you would have been able to then probably overcome everything because you could have brought in more armies.
Sure.
But you just didn't have the luck of the dice to roll to stay on that map to fight the next section of that.
So,
well,
yeah, go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, I think that one, I think in that one, we just misjudged what we needed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how many turns did we have on that map.
12.
Yeah,
12. So, like, I really think, like, when we had that, we honestly should have just thrown everything in there. I mean, and not held back.
Yeah.
And just gone in there to try to eradicate everything. In looking back, because I think if we would have had our range units, kept our melee units back till they got close enough and just hammered them down with our melee, we would have made short work with them if we had the units. But the problem we ran into is our melee units moved up too far, and again,
it wasted an entire turn on movement.
Right, we wasted that, and then they all got a free attack, and by the time it was our turn to attack, we were already weakened or almost destroyed.
I do want to say the challenge with that though is that if you do bring all your army in there, you had 12 rounds, you beat it, you go to your next map, all that army moves with you. And then you only roll 2 rounds or 4 rounds or what have you for your max, and there's too many and you can't beat them. Your entire army is stuck on that map.
Oh, right. I thought we could put them back. Okay, no. we could. Oh, okay.
So this was originally why after map 2, that's why I said that we shouldn't bring everything with us, because I was afraid of exactly that, like going to map 3 and having no armies. Or having all of our armies stuck there not moving on. But actually, I think even with the way things had played out, I think that bringing all of our armies to map 3 would have screwed us for the long game, simply because I think we would have sustained too many casualties because of how many armies were on that map. Like we probably would have won, but I think that by the time we got to the dragons, we would not have had enough armies left to actually defeat the dragon that we needed to defeat. I think we would have sustained a bunch of casualties, and we would have ended up just trickling down to where we just had a few units left by the end that weren't sufficient to kill the dragon.
If you stood out that battle for 12 rounds and fought against them, it would have just knocked those armies out.
Yeah, I think we would have won. I just don't think that we would have won the final fight.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys probably you clearly made the best choice by retreating, but you probably would have had to retreat anyway in order to keep enough dice to roll against future armies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we couldn't have retreated. If we brought all of our armies, we would have been stuck there because we would have been in it for the long haul.
We would have lost everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely was a possibility, right?
So does anybody else have anything to talk about? I feel like, this was the whole game.
That was the whole episode, yeah.
That was the whole episode.
Oh, we've all talked over Greg.
Yeah, Greg has to put in his 2 cents.
I'm sorry, I'm still waking up. I had fun. I'd like to see us use it again.
Mm.
I know we were going with a simplistic system for the first time. I'd like to see us expand it more. Like John was saying, different abilities with different roles, I think would add a bit more layer, a bit more depth to it. I thought it was kind of... We essentially did the same thing every round, right? Like we moved, we picked the target, we threw a bunch of D6s at it.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of variation to what we did other than our positioning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I'd like to see to develop that more.
And you're talking about that, and I'm already thinking we need stances. We need to have spearmen
Yeah.
that can form shield walls, and we need to have,
phalanx and
and all that kind of stuff. Jason knows what all this is about with his Warhammer stuff, but just the ability to change unit formations and then have different units with specialty formations. Man, that's wargaming at that point.
Yeah.
That's a different game.
I laugh because at one point we were so grateful for the simplicity, and then now it's like now we're gonna have stances and different units, and
that's me though. Like I always overcomplicate shit like that.
You
That's just how I
started
do
off simple.
Yeah.
No, and I get it.
My challenge with that, though, is going in that direction, which is one of the reasons I did. I mean, I like some of the ideas and making it a little bit more complex, because my plan is to use this again in the final big Bukhari battle that will come in this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But all the stuff you're talking about, John, like, I don't think I'd include all of that just because it will slow down combat so much. As you guys are all sitting there trying to think about, okay, what formation do I want? What do I want my stance to be, et cetera, and so forth, that we would never get through it. And you'd be editing that for days.
I felt like I edited this one for days. I got it done today, but man, it was a trial because there was a lot of dice counting and pausing and things like that. So it was definitely a struggle.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's go ahead, Todd.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know you finished. I have an idea I was thinking of.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it was obviously, I mean, clearly we all had fun playing it.
Yeah, had a blast.
I think it's definitely one of those things where when it comes to, like, I would have to visually see what's going on in order to enjoy it. It's hard to. It's so fun to play. I mean, that was a lot of fun to play, and I could definitely see myself playing that with, stances and abilities and all of this, and that sounds awesome to me too. But it comes back to the nice thing about this was its simplicity is also
right.
Yeah, I am concerned when people
being able to
I'm concerned about viewers watching the episode that we just did and not having any idea what was going on the map as you guys were looking at that.
Well, and I think one of the other things with that is as you start talking about having stances and everything, part of me thinks, and that's probably why so many war games are great to play with a computer, because you have something that is managing all of that instead of someone on the backside going, okay, this unit is doing this and trying to keep track of all of that. But the one thing I was thinking of is with this model, it'd be interesting to mix up that type of fighting and then almost have like a mission that your team has to go on, in midst of the combat. And so having we have to go and sabotage this device or something or whatever. And so then we switch back to kind of the role playing that we have been doing and doing that fight while those battles are raging. And I really liked how the dice, because it really simplifies a mass combat versus trying to go, okay, I have like 30 soldiers on here. We've got to roll for each one to find out how that's going.
You bring that up, and I immediately think of our Conan campaign.
Yeah,
This,
which
that,
also was
that mixture would have been
great.
Would have been awesome, right?
Which is the design, I think, for Matt Colville's like Kingdoms in Warfare, which is another mass combat style system. That's what he does. Is he a lot of times he'll have, you'll have your players on the battlefield doing whatever it is that they want to do, and you just roll the armies into the normal initiative order. And so whenever an army comes up, you deal with the army. Whenever a player comes up, you deal with the player, and it just kind of all mixes in together. But it does create for remarkably long rounds of combat as you're dealing with multiple units on both sides.
It would, but those being incredibly fun rounds, right?
Yes.
I mean, you may get through 2 rounds in an hour, but it's a hell of a round.
That's ambitious. 2 rounds.
But that was one thing. Our rounds didn't take that long to go through. Like the first round was probably the longest, and that was us just learning the ropes, figuring things out. I mean, granted, my character did some shenanigans out by the gate. We were trying to determine if we were going to break down the gate and trying to help them out. Like it was just like, oh my gosh. I know, it was like, good grief, let's just open the doors.
They still
I
never
thought
made
you
it
were
through.
at some point.
Mm-mm.
No,
I
they
thought you
didn't.
would
No.
at some point. I thought you were going to open that second gate. I was like,
I was afraid your arrows were going to do more damage to those gates than they were when you guys started shooting at them.
That was really my biggest goal, though, honestly, Todd, was just to have really quick round combat to keep things moving. Essentially, since I
Mhm.
set up 6 rounds, which looking back on that, 6 rounds was probably way too much for the time period that we play. I probably could have done shorter rounds, not rounds, that's what we're looking for, stages of
wave
combat.
stages, yeah.
Yeah, and not done as many, and then allowed to build on some of those other pieces. But my biggest goal was to have combat that felt like it was constantly moving and flowing. As you guys
I think the 2d4 ended up being too much. I think 2d3 would have been better.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I thought about this after the fact. Like while I was editing the video today, I was like, well, average on a d4 is 2.5, which means that on average that means we're rolling 5, which means, and we're doubling that, which means 10. So it's like that's kind of where we ended up on a lot of those. Was the 6 was actually a really short combat encounter, but when it was our first one, it felt long. I think that in general, if we'd done a 2d3, or if we had just done like a straight 2d6 roll or something like that, and there's no multiplication involved, like something else to kind of like compact the numbers a little bit, I think the combat would have flowed a little bit quicker.
I didn't even look at my notes again, John, but I could have sworn I said it was 1d4 times 2. But when we got into playing, somebody goes, no, you said 2d4 times 2. And I go, oh, okay. And so I just kind of like rolled it like that must have been what I wrote down. And I never even double checked it to see what.
Well, have you double checked it since?
Nope. I was like, well, that's over. Move on to the next thing. I'll have to look at it again.
Let us know the next time we play, I guess.
Funny.
I think that would definitely change a lot of the outcomes.
It would have, that would have been a drastically different thing. If we were just rolling a straight D4, you would have ended up with 1s and 2s on a lot of those, and we would not have, we would have left so many armies behind.
Well, I mean, think about how lucky we got rolling the same map twice off the go, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, had we not done that, we'd have lost 3 archers, 3 archers, and an axeman right out of the gate, and that was.
Well, but we may not have committed that many forces, though.
It's true. I mean,
we saw the dice number, and so we may have only committed. I mean, heck, if we rolled a 1, we might as well just throw ourselves down and not even throw any units.
Yeah, it takes you longer than a round to close the distance most of the time.
It's like we show up and go, and then we're gone.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I do in 2 rounds. Yeah. I don't know. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, it was something out of the gate. We hadn't tried it before. It was fun to kind of test that out, see what was going to happen. I know that there is a lot in our next couple of sessions that is going to be probably a lot of maintenance work and socialization work, especially since it's been a whole game now in combat. You guys now have stuff with Gabriella's head lingering about, conversations with the 9th. You now have the gold dragon you were able to defeat, so that actually is going to cover another one of the items that you need for the Arcalock. Can't even talk. So you guys are making very steady progress, and so there's a lot of, and then of course you have the case of the Temple of Marhina having the door locked and the items missing for the magical items. So it's going to start coming. All this stuff is going to have to start being dealt with now in the next couple of sessions.
I think the Bakari broke in.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We killed some.
They were literally there.
Yeah.
They were.
And also, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the maintenance, because I'm really looking forward to Greg building his retirement community for healers, his facility.
Dude. I get what you're going for, Greg, and that's great. I wanted to scream. I was like, dude, it's there to use. Use it. Get it out of here. I'm going to save it. They're going to retire it.
I was trying not to throw the entire role play aspect out the window as we were doing that game.
I get that, and I appreciate it. I do. I understand.
I just think it's great that even when Greg plays a lawful evil character, he can't but help let his goodness shine through. He's like, no, save the guys.
It's a wasted resource.
They're not a resource at this point anyway.
Yeah, before the battle, I was about to get engaged to my very young bride-to-be. After the battle, I'm elderly, can barely get around. I'm using a walker.
I wish I was dead.
Yeah, exactly.
But Mahale saved me.
She left me.
I wanted to give up my life. I just wanted to be done with this life, and he wouldn't let me.
No, you go home. You get yourself some tea.
It's an honor. It's an honor to give all my life force to preserve someone. We're denying that. You're going to die in an old home.
Yeah, not all of it. 90% of it.
Because they can't get young again. Now they're just stuck being old for eternity until they cast magic to die.
Man, he is lawfully evil. Good job.
Yeah, torture the rest of their life. Great.
Yeah, I looked at it. It was like, man, my character's a healer. We know what's going to happen. It's inevitable. Screw that. Yeah, we're going to use all of it. You guys are dead. See you later.
We're going to have to do another campaign after this one down the road where you guys are still within the world, but you're all going to be the old people that weren't allowed to die. And you're going to have to venture off to go find the world tree to drink from the waters in order to regain your youth.
No, I'm going to find Mahale.
Don is going to be the only young one
You
because he
son of a
just keeps
bitch.
sucking Gukari off, and he's still the same as he always did.
I mean, Erdemir's just going to look at you and be like, okay, you guys are old. I could touch a dragon.
Have your Stuart moments. Look what I can do. Oh, man. All right, what else? Anything else?
I guess so. I don't know if you had anything planned last night. I mean, the battle definitely took the entire time. Was there any fallout or any interactions or any socialization or I don't know? Can you give us a sneak peek of what we're looking at next week? Since we kind of spent the entire time doing combat. Or
Are we going to get in trouble for killing a dragon?
No, it was trying to kill us.
It was trying to kill you, so that is true. There was actually nothing else planned for yesterday for Fallout. Like the battle is what we had planned for the entire session, so that everything could kind of be addressed in the following week. So I think in our next session, it's going to be many of the things that I mentioned before. You're going to be coming back to the Carrion Council, talking about what's going on. Dorfe is going to be having some very specific conversations about the dragon, and you guys are going to have to help do some negotiations of having the dragon be brought to the Temple of Marhina. With the 9th and with the Archon, you guys will also be having to figure out what you're going to be doing with Gabriella's head. And if you're having a conversation with the 9th Council about her betrayal and what I'm going to say Goran had done. And then I'm trying to think of what else. And then there will be information starting to come down about what your next objective is for who it is that you're going to be seeking out or what dragon you're going to be seeking out. For the next item that you have to get.
Okay.
But I don't know that we'll be probably going on that adventure next session. That's probably going to be the following one afterwards.
Oh.
Sounds
After
like
our
it is
break.
going to be pretty busy.
Yeah. There's other pieces that are going on, but I can't give you information on those yet.
Sure.
But I'll
Of
tell
course.
you that it's Greg and Jason's fault.
That's fine.
Good. I'm glad that Todd and I escaped the ire or the responsibility, whatever it is.
All right.
Yes.
Just so
It
we're
has
clear,
something
my
to do with
character
the
has
myth.
no delusions about living through this entire campaign. Like,
You have to have a child, Jason.
Yeah, I was going to say.
we'll see. We'll see.
I feel like your moms are not going to take no for an answer.
You're going to come back and they're going to have somebody waiting for you to set you up. It's going to be an arranged relationship.
Go make a rock baby together.
Yep.
And then once you do, they'll kill you off because they don't need you anymore.
No, that's Dawn's mom.
Yeah.
She wins Parent of the Year.
I don't think she's
Every
going to
year.
kill him off, though.
I also thought about this after the fact. I was like, where are the rest of the kids of the Stuhia? It's like, why should there be like a daycare for wartime or whatever? Probably safer than with my mom.
Probably.
I did mention in there that there was, women and children and stuff in the streets moving around and people screaming and trying to get, their children to safety as the Ghekari were coming in. But I imagine.
So there is a daycare.
Yeah. I imagine that it's the streets. I imagine, though, that the Archon's actual hold, which there was another role that you could have done to go directly to the Archon hold, where they actually have barriers and you had to keep back the Ghekari from getting in to get the vulnerable populations that were saved there. You guys just didn't roll that one. So that was one scenario that was there. There was another one where you got to go essentially capture the idol of the Ghekari to lower their morale, which would have given you big boost points. And I can't remember what the third one was off the top of my head, but there was one where you had to protect the vulnerable populations that were back in the Archon's keep.
Oh,
Okay.
Sure. Well, Greg, looks like you and I are getting in trouble for turning her head in.
No, not that. It's a whole different thing you got to deal with.
Shit, what else did I do?
You'll find out. In suspense.
I'm guessing it has to do with Nemeth and Goran, and possibly the Archon's son, because weren't you the one that directed him to go over and help Nemeth?
I didn't say anything. I said, hey, look there. I didn't say go help him. I didn't say...
Well,
I didn't say anything. I just said go look there.
I didn't. No. Can't pin that one on me.
Don't take any blame
Yeah.
in the situation.
I didn't say anything. I just pointed and kind of like, woo, look over there, look over there.
It was interesting. That was it. That's all it was.
Oh, the other piece that you guys will be looking forward to is that now we've gotten past this juncture, there will now be more laws being passed down by the 9th onto the city.
Yes.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are they going to rescind their anti-dragon murder laws? Because dragons seem very pro-murder us.
Well,
That was
the red
that was a
one got away.
misunderstanding. Okay, the dragon was misunderstood. It was actually coming to bring us some cookies, and as it was coming, we mistaken. We didn't open the gates and offer to just allow the Ghekari in. We just started shooting them. They were coming just to be our friends.
Same thing happens with Girl Scouts. You got to be careful about that.
Yeah. That actually brings up, speaking of the red dragon and dragons in general, do the dragons heal at the same rate we do? Obviously, bigger health pool, so I imagine it, So if we go after the red one really quick, guys, that could be an easy fight.
It could be.
I don't think it is.
I think we could do that.
I'm game.
I don't think we can hit it. I think it's the same issue. I don't think we've gone up enough levels to where outside.
We'll just bring the swordsmen with us.
Mass. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
if we
let's
bring
just
the
keep
mass,
bringing.
if we bring our armies,
let's just bring everyone. Look, we learned from this. Bring everyone.
The
More
four of us
D6s
facing
will
off.
win.
We'll just the four of us facing off. It's like we'll just swing and miss and swing and miss. We'll never even do anything.
Yeah, the tactics we use for the mass combat don't work in individual because those dragons actually have an AC of like 28.
Yeah, and we're level 4.
Yeah.
But luckily, you guys have a dragon slayer with you.
Luckily.
I guess you can say that now.
I mean, I can.
The blue
Twice.
Yeah.
So,
well, I actually didn't kill the gold one. You guys actually got the kill, and I
think Jason.
I only wounded the 9th.
Jason did.
Yeah,
I
Jason
did.
got the kill on that.
Yeah.
But
you're not Yspalini, so you don't count.
That red one destroyed my armies. I had nothing left. He just went.
Yeah.
He went to town.
He just kind of. He was very angry.
He did not like you because then he couldn't hit me worth a darn.
Right.
All right. I'm trying not to give away more stuff. I'm just trying to zip it at this point.
That's okay. Just tell us.
It's probably a good time to end the episode then, so that you don't inadvertently tell us something you shouldn't tell us.
That's what I'm afraid of.
The recording's
Jonathan could just edit that out. Oh.
Yeah, the recording's turned off. Go ahead and tell us.
Totally. And Jason didn't say that either.
No. Just like I didn't tell what's his face about the other stuff.
No.
I'll say that I know Greg is the only one that's actually read the series of the Calendar series, but something occurred yesterday that Greg should know about since he's read all those books.
Put him on the spot. I like it.
But it's been so long, I don't think that he remembers.
No, it's been like a decade since I've read those books.
Yeah.
He couldn't remember that you got the system from Chainmail. You told him that like a week ago. So
yeah,
I couldn't remember it either, and I'm the one that did it.
I
just remember
chain
shirt. So
I remembered I was just giving you the opportunity to talk about it.
Gosh, man, put me on the spot. I would just cut out the part where I can't remember the system I used.
No, keep that in there.
Yeah, keep it in there.
All right.
Gary Gygax and Jeff Perrin, I believe, were the ones who wrote Chainmail.
Okay, so they did write it. I just couldn't even remember if he wrote it or if he just played it and it influenced
Good old
it.
Jeff.
So they had wrote it and developed it, and then that led into them building Dungeons and Dragons. Good. Well, if you want to kind of understand some of the madness that we use for combat, you can, again, go find the Chainmail PDF online in the Mass Combat Rules and see some of what we derived that from, because it's you will find those numbers in there for Mass Combat.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you guys tonight. So thanks again so much for hanging out with us here on Dungeon Brew. Hit the like and subscribe button. And we are taking off a week in order to kind of just regroup before we go into our final 6 sessions of the 9th Ascension. But we'll see you again next time.